What is up, everybody, and welcome to FLW Videos. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the top shadow Pokemon that you would want to go ahead and TM away from frustration with in Pokemon Go. So anyways, there's going to be an event on July 12th from 11 to 2 p.m. This is technically the second event that we have seen where you're going to be able to do this TM. Now, there's two main reasons why you would want to do this. Number one, you get to obtain a normal moveset instead of having that move frustration as the lockdown charge move. And then secondarily, you're not having to get around it by unlocking a secondary charge move to once again obtain a normal moveset or obtain an exclusive moveset at some point in time if you want to use an Elite TM or whatever. So anyways, I got the number one question that I know people are going to ask. I want to actually cover it now before we get into the list, and that is, how do you obtain a shadow Pokemon with a Community Day exclusive move? What exactly is the process? No one's wanting to mess this up, so we're going to go ahead and cover this now. Step number one. Go ahead and get yourself whatever Pokemon it is that has that exclusive move. In this example, we're going to be using a Beldum. I have a Beldum that I have ready to go. So the first step that you're going to do is on July 12th, go ahead and TM away from frustration. So you're simply going to have yourself a Beldum that doesn't have that move frustration. And if anybody is curious, if you evolve it later on, it will not regain the move frustration. I had a lot of people ask that, so I want to go ahead and clarify. So at this point in time, we've got a Beldum that does not have that move frustration. And you've got two options at this point in time. Step number one, you could go ahead and evolve it up to a Metagross and then Elite TM over to a Meteor Mash. But if you're like me and you don't want to use an Elite TM on something like that, what you can do is just hold on to your Shadow Beldum until December Community Day, and then at that point go ahead and evolve up to the Metagross, and it will automatically obtain that move Meteor Mash if it's during the December Community Day. And then you've got yourself a Shadow Metagross with the Community Day exclusive move Meteor Mash. Hopefully that is helpful in regards to that. I know a lot of people had some questions about that. But anyways, if that was helpful, if this video is helpful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the Pokemon. So let's jump into the raid type first. We're going to go up against Kyogre, so we're going to see some grass type as well as some electric types being showcased. So when we take a look at the top of the list, geez, I mean, we've got 6 shadow Pokemon taking over the top 9, which is just insane to see that. Just goes to showcase how dominant they are. But for me to recommend you to power up a shadow Pokemon, which is way more expensive, in my mind, the benchmark is to be in the number 1 spot, to beat all of those legendaries, non-legendaries, be at the top of the list basically, and then if you can avoid it, hopefully having a Pokemon that doesn't require an exclusive move to be meta relevant. But what we're going to see here is that Shadow Raikou clearly gets a major performance boost off of its normal form at 834 going up to 698. That is literally almost 130 seconds, 130 plus seconds, 2 minutes of a performance increase going up to the shadow Pokemon. So definitely worth it there. And another cool thing about Raikou is because it doesn't have an exclusive move, if you TM away frustration during the event, you then just have to TM to get over to Wild Charge and you're good to go. All you'll have to do from that point is just power it up. And then we've got Shadow Electivire. I think Shadow Electivire is going to be something that is a little bit on the softer side of a yes, but is still nonetheless a yes, so I want to point that out. We end up seeing a major performance in the time to win of roughly 90 seconds, and as far as the feints are concerned, it only goes up by 4. Forgot to mention, but with Shadow Raikou, they are both 39 feints. So Shadow Raikou, 39 feints, just gets almost a 2-minute increase in performance, which is just insane when you're going up against a legendary Pokemon. But I think from this list, that's all I'm going to actually recommend. Shadow Zapdos is interesting, but I think it's a little bit on the expensive side, and you're going to have to use an Elite Fast TM to get that Thunder Shock. And then beyond that, you've got a legendary Pokemon that's able to beat it. So unfortunately, Zapdos and all these Pokemon are going to get a big no from me. So let's go and move on to the next one. We're going to go up against an Articuno just to showcase the rock type attackers and rock type Pokemon. And we see Shadow Tyranitar. Now, don't get me wrong, Shadow Tyranitar is amazing. If I had a super good IV one, I would definitely go ahead and power it up, especially if I had the resources. You would have to use an Elite Fast TM to get that move Smackdown, so you don't have to worry about TMing away frustration, but definitely do it so you can obtain a normal move like Stone Edge, for example. But, I mean, it's cool and everything, but Rampardos technically does beat it, and Rampardos is just a non-legendary Pokemon. It is way more accessible than a Shadow Tyranitar, but I will not fault you if you want to go ahead and power up that Tyranitar because it looks so cool. Just wanted to show it, and there ends up being only a 3-second difference between them. I'll stick with Rampardos, but if I get the right opportunity at the right time, I'll go ahead and power up that Shadow Tyranitar. Anyways, if we go ahead and move on for this, I know that Moltres is going to be one that a lot of people were curious about. If you end up battling Giovanni in the past, got yourself that Shadow Moltres, you may be curious as to what the heck you do with it. Here in this particular case, we're using the exclusive move Sky Attack, and the only thing that beats regular Moltres in this particular case is Shadow Moltres, so it's basically the same form of itself. But we only see about a 20-second increase in the time to win, so it's not that big of a difference. So if you were to ask me what do I do with Shadow Moltres, I would actually recommend you to go ahead and TM away Frustration and then go over to Overheat and just use it as a fire type attacker. It's going to be way less expensive that way. And then of course at some point in time, if you do want to go ahead and TM over to Sky Attack, you'll have to use an Elite Charge TM anyways, but you won't lose anything in the process. But that's definitely an interesting one. Shadow Zapdos showing up again, but it's getting beat by legendaries as well as non-legendary Pokemon. So I'm personally not going to go ahead and recommend it. And then finally, the most clear-cut winner in my opinion is Shadow Metagross. Shadow Metagross is going to be one that you would need to obtain that exclusive move Meteor Mash. So go through the process that we talked about earlier to be able to obtain it, but it's going to be worth it. As far as the time to win is concerned, going up against the Kyurem, we're seeing roughly a 70-second improvement, and there is only one extra feint, and it ends up beating Lucario, which was in the #1 position, by 60+ seconds. So Shadow Metagross looking good. That's one that I'm personally already got lined up, ready to go. Gonna go ahead and TM that away from the raid side. We got a couple honorable mentions at least. We got Shadow Dragonite, Shadow Gardevoir, and then of course that Shadow Tyranitar, but we've already talked about that. Now the cool thing about these two is you don't need the exclusive moves, the exclusive Community Day moves to do well with these particular Pokemon. You could just end up going with Dragon Claw and then go with just the double fairy type moveset with Shadow Gardevoir. So if you're considering using those, by all means go for it. Just know that there are other options that are going to end up beating it, but I felt like they were at least worth an honorable mention. Now let's go ahead and dive into the PvP side. So on this list, we're going to walk through this briefly, but for PvP, what's going on is a lot of the Shadow Pokemon technically can do well even without using a charge move. They're very fast move dependent, but if you go ahead and TM away Frustration, you can obtain a normal moveset, which is going to be great. And then of course, I'll talk about some exclusions such as the starter Pokemon needing Frenzy Plant just for boost in performance. But anyways, go ahead and take a look at it. As far as the Great League is concerned, some of the Pokemon that I personally seen quite a bit of are Victory Bell as well as Gardevoir. Gardevoir is a perfect example of what I talked about earlier, where it's heavily reliant on the move Charm. If you go ahead and get yourself one, why not go ahead and TM away Frustration on these Pokemon just to obtain a normal moveset? And then of course, if you get to use a charge move, by all means go for it in that particular case, but it is not make or break for a lot of these Pokemon. I think Zapdos got a little bit of a shine last season as far as the Shadow is concerned. Dragonite's also interesting as well, but you're seeing all of the different options here that a lot of people are of course recommending. If we go ahead and scroll down to the Ultra League, it gets a little bit lower and lower and lower as we go on, but we're starting to see that the Shadow starters are really getting the forefront here with Venusaur as well as Swampert. And of course, if you have these Pokemon ready to go, try to get yourself the ideal IVs. You want to make sure that your defense is very high on these Pokemon at least. Hopefully a really low attack stat, so low attack, high defense, just because they end up taking more damage because their defense ends up going down. I mean, there's just a lot going on with that, but ideally speaking, I think with these Pokemon, you would potentially want to wait until December or decide to use an Elite Charge TM. It's completely up to you. But if we go ahead and scroll down to the Master League, we'll see that we have a Pokemon like Snorlax, and I think that's definitely worth mentioning. I don't have one personally. I wish I did. I think that would be really cool, but Metagross is going to be the one that I think is on everyone's list. The fact that it's going to be good from the raid side as well as from the PvP side. You need that move Meteor Mash. It is a hugely future-proof Pokemon in that way. Also obtains a Mega, so it's one that I'm personally going to go ahead and recommend to you. But anyways, I hope you did enjoy this episode. If you have any questions about any Pokemon that you're considering powering up, considering unlocking a secondary charge move, let me know in the comments section below, and I We'll see you next time. Huge shout out to the supporters over at Patreon. If you would like to get exclusive perks, make sure to check out that link in the description, and I will see you next time.